Everybody sit back, relax, enjoy, and let's hear from our founders today. Tachwele, over to you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I trust everyone is well, and I trust everyone is ready to go.
Yeah, we're not seeing you. Where are you?
I'm here, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay, we've seen you now.
Good morning, Mr. Nkala.
Morning, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Fine.
I guess we can jump straight into it.
Okay.
So there's a saying in Ndebele that says "Indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili." Loosely translated, it means that the way is asked to those who have been there or to those who have experienced it. And I'm sure
That's correct.
Going to learn a lot from Mr. Nkala. He has built this company, and let's gain lessons. And from these lessons, I hope that we can grow as people. So the first question I'll ask is, where did you grow up? And how would you say your childhood shaped you to be the person you are today?
I grew up in Philapuzi, near the school called Nkala Primary School. And I did my primary education at, completed my primary education at Mkwabeni Primary School in Philapuzi.
In Philapuzi, okay. Okay, that's interesting. And I'm sure as you were growing up, you had a dream job. I also had a dream job. I wanted to be a tennis player at one point. So growing up, what would you say your dream job was?
When we were growing up at the time, our dream jobs were, my dream job was teaching, the teacher.
Oh, okay. And did you eventually become a teacher?
Yes, I became a temporary teacher for just 1 year to somewhere in Kezi.
Okay, and
teaching at that time used to be a very important job, and the people had a lot of respect for teachers. And these were only the opportunities. Also, most of the opportunities blacks had were in the teaching field and nursing and so on. But teaching for men mainly was the main job.
Okay, and okay, on your way to to your first job and teaching, is there any what did you study, and why did you? So you mentioned that
No, it was a temporary teaching after Form 4.
After Form 4, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously, after 1 year of temporary teaching, I came to town, Bulawayo, and then I heard that the railway were recruiting. So I went to the railway with a cousin of mine, which we got recruited as the firemen at that time, which were only few blacks had access to those positions. So yeah, this was a job which was for training as a train driver on the Rhodesia railways those days, and it was a big job, and probably for Africans it was the mostly well-paying job at the time.
At the time, okay. And what kind of challenges did you face when you were working at this job?
The challenge is, well, I would say the inspiration really that it gave me. In fact, what I became later on was an inspiration I got while on this job. The Rhodesia Railways used to have what they call the centralized train control. This controlled the trains as they traveled in all routes to Zambia and to South Africa, to Botswana, and so on. It was called a centralized train control. I got really quite excited about this system, and I wanted to know more. So I used to ask the chaps that I was working with, what does one need to do to be able to understand this system? They said, well, you need to be a technician or an electrical engineer. So that's where it sparked my interest in engineering.
Okay. So from that point, when your interest was sparked in engineering, did you then pursue engineering school, or what step did you take?
Yes, because I was working for the railways, I came to contact with quite a number of friends. A friend who is now passed on, were called Musid Marunga, is the one that gave me information about United Nations scholarships for Pakistan. So he gave me all the information that I needed to apply for these scholarships, which I applied for scholarships, and then I got the scholarship. But the problem with the challenge was that this scholarship did not provide for transport to Pakistan. So then obviously I had to resign from my job as a train driver, trainee train driver. So I wrote a letter to the railway postmaster at Bulawayo train station, and I gave him, and said, no, I was resigning. He was really shocked. He said, what's wrong with you? I said, no, I wanted to go back to school. He said, well, what do you want to go to? When you come back from school, we are paying you better than when anything that you come back to. No, I said, okay, I know, but I want to go back to school. He just tore my application for resignation and said, really, if you are serious, go and write another one. So I just came out of his office. I started writing another letter again of resignation, exactly the same letter. So then he got...
Okay, please.
He got the letter, and then he said, well, is this political? I said, no, there's no politics in it. Because at that time, there were quite a lot of people leaving the country to go and join the liberation struggle. So I said, no, there's no politics in it. I want to go back to school to go and do engineering. I've been given an opportunity in Pakistan to go and do this course. He said, well, that's okay. I'll process it now. If you feel really that it is important for you to do this. It was important in the sense that without that, if I was not in the railway, I could not have been able to afford to pay for the ticket to Pakistan, because this scholarship said no transport. You had to find your own ticket. So my resignation pay gave me enough to be able to buy a ticket to Pakistan to go and do my engineering.
Okay. So once you got to Pakistan, I'm sure it must have been very different from what we're used to in Zimbabwe. So what kind of challenges did you face when you got there?
Well, the biggest challenge that we had when we got to Pakistan, when I got to Pakistan, was the question of language. But of course, the schools where I went to, a high school, which was teaching in English in Lahore. And I was able then to fit in, but I was given two options. One to follow the course for a doctor, and another one to follow the course for an engineer. I opted for an engineering course.
Okay, wow. So,
and of course, that course was equivalent to our A level in Zimbabwe. Mm.
Wow.
And then
Okay, so
I finished that course. Then I was admitted to the College of Engineering at Lahore, Pakistan College of Engineering.
and how long were you in Pakistan?
I was in Pakistan for 2 years for pre-university education and 4 years for the university course, which was the total 6 years.
And in those 6 years you were in Pakistan, did you ever come home to visit, or were you there?
No, I didn't have enough money to be able to visit home anyway, so I never came home to visit. Mm.
Okay, wow, okay.
But during the holidays, I could only visit friends who were in the course together. Mm. But
Wow,
also
okay.
that was important, that it inspired, because most of these friends were from fairly rich families, and many of them were business people. Mhm. And were running businesses from their fathers and grandfathers and so on. So really, it inspired me that, we could do the same in Zimbabwe. Mhm.
Okay. And then when you finished learning in Pakistan, what did you do next?
Right. When I finished in Pakistan, the challenge now was, you remember that I said I paid my way to Pakistan.
Mhm.
Now I'm supposed to pay my way back to Zimbabwe. So I didn't have money. The scholarship wasn't enough to be able to enable me to save for travel back to Zimbabwe. So I had to seek a job, and I got a job from a company called Philips Pakistan. And this company provided me a job. It was an electronics company. So I worked there for almost a year just to get enough money to pay for the ticket to buy ship back to Zimbabwe.
Wow.
So I was able to get enough money from that job. Then I paid for my ticket to travel by ship to Beira. Which was an experience, really. And then at Beira, then I was able to get a flight back to Zimbabwe.
Oh, and how long did the ship ride take, just out of interest sake?
The ship, I think it took about 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay, okay. All right. And so did you then have any other job after when you got back to Zimbabwe?
Well, when I got back to Zimbabwe, I looked for jobs, and then I joined a company called Supersonic in Bulawayo, which was manufacturing radios and television.
Okay, and at this point, you've worked and you've been working, and what lessons can you say that you learned from all these jobs that you had that helped you build telecontract?
Now, these jobs, this was mainly in electronics. When I was at Supersonic, the jobs, there was an advert that asked for people to join the PTC, Post and Telecommunication at the time. And I applied, this is now called Tel1. I applied for a job as an engineer, as a trainee telecom engineer at the PTC. Remember, at that time, I think I was the first African to join PTC as an engineer. So,
Wow.
It was really exciting, and then I needed then to transfer to Harare from Bulawayo to go and join the PTC training college, where they were training their initial trainees as technicians. This was really a fundamental difference from the electronics that I was doing at the Supersonic, and because now it was a telecommunication company, it was providing telephone system to the rest of the country. And the employees in those positions, namely, were mainly whites. I was the only black in the class, I remember. When we were training in Harare. And after completing that, then I was placed in various places. In fact, it was really a challenging situation in that I went to various stations of PTC where the whites didn't want to go. They used to send me. This became an advantage in the long run, in that I learned a lot within the time that I was in PTC. I learned a lot about the PTC networks and throughout the country, because they used to send me to Mutare, to Masvingo, to Bulawayo, and so on.
Okay, and so from PTC, what then gave you, or how did telecontract then come about?
Now, what then happened is that while I was at the PTC there, and obviously my education journey was not finished. And PTC being run mainly by whites and mainly by the British sort of. So I wanted to go back to school to go and do a master's degree in England. So I applied for a scholarship. I got the scholarship to go and do a master's degree in Wales, in Cardiff. And it was an exciting time. And at that time I had to get married to Barbara, and we had a daughter who is Dumisani Nkala. And we went with her to go and do a master's. I don't know if she still remembers. So she started a school there, and the preschool in Wales, where I was doing a master's. So it was really an exciting time, and then I completed my master's degree, I think in 1980, after independence, actually. Independence was 1980. I completed my master's degree, and then I came back to Zimbabwe, and I rejoined the PTC. And the PTC had a transmission division, and again, and I was promoted to the principal engineer at the PTC, and I was then promoted again as the assistant chief engineer, local networks, and I eventually was made the director of operation in the PTC. That is the highest position I went to during the time I was working for the PTC.
Oh, wow, okay. Okay, I'll just take it back a little. So during the time before you went to Wales, you mentioned that you met Mrs. Nkala. How did you guys meet?
Okay. You know, I was in Harare at the time, and I visited Bulawayo, and I had a friend, unfortunately, who's now late, also called Joshua Mpofu. And he then told me, I told him about my problem in Harare. I wanted a girl from home. So he told me about a girl that was teaching in Matopo Secondary School. That girl was Barbara Makalisa at the time. So I used to, then I used to drive then from Harare. I went to then to look for this girl at Matopo. So I used to have I had a car. I think that car used to be called the Alfa Romeo those days, which I drove all the way from Harare to Bulawayo, then from Bulawayo to Matopo to go and look for this girl. This was, I think it was 1976, I think that somewhere there. So I found this girl, and then we talked, and eventually she became my wife.
Okay.
Then we married. When did we marry? We married in 1977. 76, 77.
And you mentioned that you, when you went to school in Wales, you had a daughter. So how did you manage to juggle, or how have you actually been managed to juggle?
No, I went first, actually. I went first, and then Barbara, my wife, and my first daughter, Dumisani, then followed me at the end of the year. I went in September to Wales, and they followed in December.
Okay.
1978.
And how did you manage to balance, being a parent and also having this school?
Now we're two of us. My wife was working also. And so it became easier for her to organize a ticket and for them to follow me.
Okay. So
he took care of the transport for her and the daughter.
Okay. And when you came back to Zimbabwe, you managed to rise the ranks in PTC.
Yes.
So then, what then inspired you to say, I want to then start telecontract from that point?
Yes. When I, as I said, in PTC, I rose up to the position of director operations, which was in charge of the whole PTC network. And during that time, I was offered a position as general manager at a company. It was one of the biggest companies in Rhodesia at that time, called TA Holdings. Yes. So I was offered a job to come to be general manager of a manufacturing company called the Imperial Refrigeration. They were manufacturing fridges, both domestic and commercial fridges. So I left the PTC in 1988 to join this company. And it was an interesting exposure because at that time, the manufacturing was Rhodesia at that time, was one of the, which was Rhodesia, it was now Zimbabwe. It was one of the biggest manufacturing countries exporting to the whole African, including South Africa. So in at that time when I was with the TA, PTC started deregulating. That was in 1990. We started now looking for private companies that could use to develop its own networks. And I saw a tender. That is where it sparked the start of telecontract. So we now applied for that tender, and then we got the tender to go and construct overhead lines to provide telephone lines. I think it was Mashonaland West. And I remember the first line that we constructed was to Mugabe's place, to Mugabe's home in Zimba. That was the line that we constructed.
Okay, wow.
And the company itself grew. So my brother was Banyas, Tawanda's father, who was my brother, and my wife had to leave their jobs to come and run telecontract when I was still with TA. And then I joined them. The challenges really at that time was to get the people that had knowledge, and so we had to train people on the job to do this overhead line construction. So my knowledge of the PTC system became very handy.
Wow, okay. And so I'm assuming that the early years for telecontracts were these jobs that for PTC, such as constructing the overhead lines. But then from a business perspective,
yes,
how would you say the early years were like for telecontract? Was it a struggle
yes,
to get back?
yes, it was a struggle, because you see, the thing is that when we got these tenders from PTC, we didn't have money. We didn't have the right tools and the transport to undertake these jobs. So one of the challenges, the decisions really we had to make as a family was that, we have to sell our house in when was that place? In Vinona, in Leafy Close, and to buy tools and uniforms for the staff. So that was really challenging, because my wife didn't want. She was saying, no, we sell our house. What will we do then? So it took a lot of persuading for her to agree. Eventually she agreed. Then we sold our house there, and quite a lot of the cash that we used now to buy tools, uniforms that are required for the staff, and the capital for paying various issues that we got from the selling of the house. Then we went to deposit another house in Borodale with the balance.
Wow. I'm sure in all of this there must have been people who were saying, this guy sounds like he's crazy. I'm sure that there were people who,
There were quite a lot.
Would have been discouraged.
Quite a lot.
How did you manage to filter out that discouragement and encourage yourself forward?
Yes, I think the encouragement really was I think when my wife agreed for us to go to sell the house and go into the business, then she became quite committed, and so because she realized also that I had passion for this job, and that we needed to move in that direction.
And I would imagine this at this time, especially for Black people, there must have not been a lot of, Black people starting businesses, especially at that magnitude. So
the Blacks mainly at that time, most of the Black people all used to own buses. They were in the transport sector, and buses and shops and so on. And in this kind of business, there were not very many Blacks in that area. So it was really a challenge to motivate oneself.
Wow. Wow.
And training became the key aspect of our business, because we needed to motivate the people, the supervisors, the workers, and in the business to understand what we're trying to achieve.
Wow, okay. So maybe
So we got one, in fact, I would say that during that time they got one guy, I still remember, in fact, my wife reminded me, who was called Van Tonda. This was a poor guy who really helped in going, was from South Africa, who helped in going around the country training and supervising, making sure that the jobs are done correctly. And he was a really very good help for us at the time.
Wow, wow, wow.
And Banya, the father of Chaga and Tawanda, who was my brother, he was in charge of the overhead line. He was in charge of the construction in the company overall. And Van Tonda was doing the training and the technical parts and making sure that the jobs are done correctly.
And I think I can testify to Telco being a training company, even up to today.
Up to today.
Up to today, we come in, we start working here, and we're still getting trained. So I think thank you for keeping that aspect of Telco alive.
Yes, that has been the legacy of Telco. The training has been really a legacy that we have right from the beginning up to now. We still continue to train. Quite a lot of the people that have been succeeded in all areas, for one reason or another, you find that probably they've been a Telco.
Wow, wow. And I'm just going to get a few questions from the comments. So we have a question here that says, Mr. Nkala's life story is inspiring. Was there any role model who inspired you, or was it just personal determination?
Well, really, it was a new area that we're now breaking into as Blacks. And the re-education and the exposure that I had when I went to Pakistan and so on, it became an inspiration. And the holidays, when we used to go out with the family to overseas and see what is happening, and training and reading and getting information from the shops, we really were pivotal in supporting my vision. So we used to buy a lot of big books for training, training myself and as well as training my staff.
Okay, and then what would you say, or like you want to advise other couples, how important is it to have a spouse who shares the same vision as you?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge to have this spouse who shares the same vision. It really requires persuasion to make sure that, but it is very important, I think, to the young people that your spouse comes along with your vision, because it could be a major problem if she doesn't believe, because she'll put the blocks on every aspect of your wish. But if you convince her and make sure that she shares the same vision with you, then you will have succeeded. It's part of the struggle. Yeah.
Okay, and we have another question here. What advice would you give to someone who wants to start from nothing as well? And what are the channels one can take?
I would say the advice I would give to the young people is that education first. It's very, very important to that you get all your education that you require, and prepare yourself. Education is key to ensure that you have a successful career.
Wow. Okay, and
now it's much easier than it was during our time, because you now have Google and all other things that you can get all the information which we didn't have. We didn't have that access to that at that time. And hard work is crucial. It's crucial. Yes. And when you are doing business, you have got to also look for mentors, people that will help you and guide you. It's very important.
Okay, and we have another question here. What would you say are your success habits?
Really, I mean, as a family, we're saying we're hard work, and as well, the family. My wife was always praying for me and our children, and that, we give ourselves inspiration of prayer and of dedication to our work, and being honest in integrity in the business, in the way we do our business on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. And that became very important to us as a family, because we have children also who are now seeing what we're doing, were to follow our example. Yes, most of our children didn't want to join the Telco. We used to discuss in the evening about the company and about the future. And I used to tell them about what I saw in Pakistan, how that the parents used to take over the business which was started by their great-grandfathers. They didn't want to, they didn't, but we allowed them. We said, okay, you can do what you want. And but somehow God convinced them that, it is the right direction. They came back to the company.
We will have to ask the children what
you need to. You need to.
We have another question here. What would you advise a young person wanting to start something today, considering the prevailing environment, cost of capital, and other factors?
Yes, the advice is really that, you need to find mentors. And the capital is not easy in our country at the moment, particularly for young people who own nothing. Being an owner of a property, a house or something, is something which allows you institutions to believe to give you some collateral. But if you don't have anything, sometimes it can be very difficult. But you can start small and grow up bit by bit. You can't start at the top there. It is always people start at the top. And also, people, when they start small, the tendency is not to put the money back into the business. So people, they start consuming all the money they get from contracts, or is it from contracts or from sales, and so on. And buying cars, very expensive cars, and not investing back into the business. That is not a very good strategy.
And if you have any other questions, please send them through. But we'll start winding down. So if you could go back in time and advise your younger self at the time you were starting telecontract, what would you tell yourself at that time?
Yes. When we started in telecontract, obviously challenges was that of finance and of trained manpower. It's very important to invest in people as a business, and training. You really can't have enough of it, because if you expose people to training, they will provide you better products, and then give your customer satisfaction much better if they are well trained. Again, I cannot emphasize preparing to start small. Must be prepared to start small and grow up bit by bit, and put all the monies that you are getting, whether is it from contract or is it from sales, to grow the business. You may not have an opportunity to have money from other sources. So try to use whatever limited resources you have to put your money back into the business to grow it up.
Wow.
And learn from what others are doing.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Nkala. And we have a question here from Best. It says, how long did it take to get a return on your telco investment?
Really, the return was not a very important issue at the time. They wanted to make sure we survive from year to year, and make sure that the business doesn't fall, make sure that we don't fail. In my life, as an owner of Telco, I don't remember many times us failing to pay our workers. That was used to be a principle that we were living by, to make sure that we pay our workers. Yes, we're not paying very heavily. Our salaries were not very high, but we're making sure that we save enough for us to pay our workers every month. And I think that was important for us to maintain the staff that we had trained.
Wow. Okay, I'll take the last question. Just looking at the time. This is the last question from Auntie Junior. It says, what is Mr. Nkala's vision now for the future of Telco?
The vision now is that the children can take it to the next level. Like what I saw in Pakistan, the companies that were started by their great-grandfathers were still surviving. And I'm expecting that the Telco will still survive, and provide employment to my great-grandchildren. Yeah.
Thank you so
much. And
to
provide workers with the income and so on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nkala. I'll thank you to everyone for your comments. Thank you for people are saying that your story is inspiring. People are saying, Mr. Joe said that Mr. Nkala is a lifelong learner. And people were also, like clarifying how much Telco is a training company, and saying that you are very focused indeed, sir. And I would also like to thank you. I am truly inspired. There's a lot of things that I've picked up that I didn't know. And thank you for your time.
The important thing really is to encourage the young people to really venture. Get their education first, get mentors, and venture into areas that they believe they can do. And there's nothing that they can fail to do with wisdom, and mentorship.
Wow, thank you. All the way from Philapusi. Thank you, Mr. Nkala. I'll now hand over to Nyari to the meeting for us. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, I'm going to close off the meeting by, first of all, I'd like to thank Tachelo Dewa. Can we all give Tachelo a hand of applause, virtual applause for the great job. Great job done here. That's a great interview. Well done. Thank you so much. We look forward to more young people leading these Founders Focus Fridays. I also want to say thank you to Nyari for putting together the Founders Focus Fridays. It was her idea to put it together, and worked with Tachelo to make sure that it happens. Thank you so much, Nyari. And then last but not least, I want to thank my personal mentor, my personal hero in life, Mr. Shadreck Nkala, for sharing this very, very, very inspirational story.
How did you mute?
Oh, sorry about that. I kept talking and my line was muted. I don't know what the last thing you heard was, but I just wanted to thank my own personal mentor, Mr. Nkala. And I wanted to say that everyone that he calls children is not just the biological children, it's everyone that has been trained at Telco is the children of Telco.
Absolutely.
And so we look forward to many great stories that come out of the Telco story, many great businesses that will be spawned from here, many great partnerships. Telco itself is on a growth path at the moment. We are trying to spawn businesses in all parts of the region, and we trust and believe that the people we have trained here will be running those businesses in the region if they decide to stay, but that if they decide to go, that they will do many great things out there in the market that are full of integrity and that follow the pattern that they've learned here. Thank you once again. Maybe people might want to see the face of Mrs. Nkala. Can she just come on the camera just so that they know the two founders that did found Telco? Unfortunately, Mr. David Bwanya is late, so unfortunately you cannot see him here, but there we go. Those are the founders of Telco. The Founders Focus series is not over. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, just to say, continue to think big, each one of you. Continue to dream big. Dreams come true. Joseph's dream came true many years after, the biblical Joseph. So your dream can also come true. Mr. Nkala's dream came true. My own dreams have come true. Those of you who want to come and sit at my feet and listen to my own dreams, they've all come true, including marrying this great man. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you, team. Thank you for attending. There will be another Founders Focus next month, and you will be hearing a little bit more from a female perspective from Mrs. Nkala. So be inspired and have a fantastic week. It's a great, have a happy Friday and a safe weekend. Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good day.
Thank you so much. Very proud
Thank
of
you,
you all.
everybody. Good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great interview. Thank you. So inspired.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I've been inspired.
Thank you.
Oh, all right.